21st Century Entrepreneurship with Martin Piskarik.
So, Martin, I absolutely love entrepreneurship. This is my 18th company. And I've been through the ups and downs of what it's like to build from nothing and build something substantial, and then have somebody else become the caretaker of it as I move on to into another venture. And one of the things that I came to know very early, way back during my first company, was if I wasn't healthy, I couldn't perform the duties of a CEO, the duties of a founder, and my creativity would go to shit. I wouldn't feel like I could actually accomplish things. And I certainly couldn't manage people well unless I was healthy mentally, physically, emotionally, psychically. And so, yeah, really important. And that's where the merging of these nootropics and this entrepreneurial lifestyle really makes sense for me. So I'm Mark Effinger, and I'm the Chief Product Officer for Newtopia, which is a nootropics brand, and Bioptimizers, which is a health, wellness, and gut brand. Well known. We're the 245th fastest growing private company in America. We hit a thing called the Inc. 500, or Inc. 5000 is what it's known as now. They've expanded it quite a bit. My journey came from being one of those geeky little kids. From the time I was 5 years old, I built my first radio at 5.5. I built my first vacuum extraction technology, or I should say, it was basically vacuum chemistry technology. When I was 6 to 8, and then at 9.5 years old, I built my first helium neon laser, and I built it from scratch, from parts from a hardware store and a neon sign shop, and designed the laser tube myself and ground the ends myself, and got these dielectric mirrors and all that kind of stuff. So I was one of those geeky little kids that didn't have a really well-seasoned baseball mitt. I wasn't really that good at football, but I could kick ass when it came to science and engineering. And then we fast forward. I started my first company in 1986, sold it 11 months later, and then continued to build companies. So here we are. We fast forward. I'm on company number 18. Company number 17 was the longest I'd ever had one, which was almost 14 years. And it was a nootropics company. And this company called Bioptimizers found us, dusted us off and said, hey, we think there's a bigger vision for you, especially as your products apply to high performance individuals, both athletes and company founders. And so, yeah, that's where I am today. Three years ago, the founders of Bioptimizers discovered me because one of our clients, who was a common friend, I did not know of Bioptimizers at that point, but this was a very well-known executive coach, life coach, and he poured my stuff out on a Facebook post. It was all in test tubes, and he said like this, and he said, "This is the stuff. This is the shit." And then he explained why it was important to him. And the founders of Bioptimizers saw that, said, we got to try this, ordered a bunch of it, got me on a Zoom call and said, hey, we'd like to buy your company. I said, it's not for sale. And they said, great. He goes, if you would have said it's for sale, we would have moved on. We were looking for somebody that had domain expertise in nootropics, which are brain-enhancing nutritional supplements, and wanted to go build something significant. And that was me. That was perfect. So we joined forces. And what we did, the way we formed Newtopia was really interesting. And this is a lesson for anybody that is in the mode of being acquired, but wants to do it delicately so that they have some risk mitigation in place, meaning they don't want to put all of their eggs in one basket and then suddenly find at the end of it that things don't work out, whether it's personality conflict or operating methodologies or vision or mission aren't in alignment. And that was really important to me. I had been very lucky to work with Tony Robbins' executive assistant, was a girlfriend many years ago, and she had coached me on a lot of that stuff. The founder of Covey was a guide to me. He and I became very close friends. His name was Will Murray, and when he was alive, he was an incredible cultural guide, saying, here's what you're looking for in company culture and why it's important to integrate culture first, not a bolt-on to other stuff. Like, figure out what's important to you and build your company around those assets, because it's hard to come back to it later if you built a company off some other, if you're just money motivated or just mission motivated. You need to have a combination. So yeah, so I was really lucky. So what they did is they bought a bunch of product, like tens of thousands of dollars in product, did a bunch of analysis of it, human analysis and database analysis. And then they said, let's do this. Let's start a brand called Newtopia. We'll start it together. We will hide your face like you're an FBI informant, and we will do podcasts and Zoom calls and the rest of it. And we'll see if this relationship works. And we did. We spent a year doing that, and we grew very quickly, this new brand called Newtopia. While we were doing that, we slowly but surely started kind of titrating down my old brand called Web Nutrients. And after a year, we said, do you think this works? Do you think this works? On calls every week for many hours, Zoom calls every week, many hours. And we integrated a thing called the EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System, which is a very key part of how the company grows past that kind of, small company business into a medium to large company, is having a platform for how do you operate, how do you communicate between each other, how do you keep things on track without, over managing or micromanaging or not managing at all and watching them go off in the weeds. So it's really powerful. And after a year, we said, absolutely, let's keep doing this. They doubled down in commitment, in branding, in product, in resources. We grew the company significantly. We grew it 600% just in those 2 years. And then October of last year, we pulled the last trigger and made it a dedicated part of the company. And we mothballed the old company. So it was great. Whenever you build a company, especially if you build a company that's kind of like part of your inherent drive or passion, like there's a great podcast called what is it? My First Million. The My First Million podcast is a very popular podcast. Great guys, Sam Parr and Sean, and they talk about basically My First Million, but of course they've interviewed everything from Mark Zuckerberg on down. So these guys have done really well, and they both sold their companies for in excess of 20 million. So those are nice sales. Those liquidity events are really valuable. It's called a liquidity event when you go from owning your company to having another company or individual pay you enough money that you can say F you to anything else if you want. And that's a nice place to be. There's really interesting advantages to being able to have a liquidity event if it gets you into that FU space. If it doesn't give you into the FU space where you still have a lot you have to give to make it happen, you better be sure that you and the people that are acquiring your company are on the same page. You have the same operating philosophy. Your agreements in place make it so that you both win. That I know that win-win is overused. It's a classic Stephen Covey, 7 Habits, maxim, but it is really, really true. I've had some venture-backed companies that I've been part of. I've had angel-backed companies, and I've bootstrapped, meaning that I've built it from scratch for nothing and funded it myself just through sales of product or through savings that I've acquired. My first company, I had 32,000 saved when I was in the Air Force, and 11 months later, sold the company, and in total, it was worth about $800,000 in equity. And I left $250,000 of that on the table because I left that company before my agreement was up and before we could get a public offering. And it was worth it. It was worth it because I felt the need to go and do something else. But it's really important to develop solid relationships and understand and build trust with those people that you're working with, and last and get long enough through that dating period. We call it a dating period. Get long enough through that dating period that they, you see them in their underwear, you get to know them in a really intimate basis, because otherwise there's a lot of stuff that can be handed to you at the 11th hour under pressure, under duress to you, that makes it so that they get a good deal and you suck. You don't get the deal at all. And the other side of that is that it kind of can dishevel your company. Most company acquisitions don't turn out well for the acquired company. Over 90% of them have a very poor ROI at the end of it, because they don't leverage the tools. They don't have a good relationship. They have different operating philosophies. And as a result of that, the integration doesn't happen very well, and there's no capitalization of these kind of key assets that you're giving them. And instead, your brand gets diluted. Your product becomes crap because they just want to strip it down to its basics and improve the margin. And everything that you worked for gets lost in that translation. So it's really important that you understand what they want to do. What happened with my company when Web Nutrients became Newtopia is these guys, I had some dreams. I wanted to make packaging that was like something out of the future. So these kinds of things, this was hundreds of thousands of dollars of development and manufacturing. And instead of them saying, no, that's going to hurt our margin, they said, who's the best designer in America that could build that, or actually worldwide? So Louis Vuitton, Moet Hennessy, LVMH, we found one of the lead designers from LVMH came and became our designer for that. Dan was incredible. And we were able to build something. And that was kind of I think it was a philosophical statement, them saying, look, we believe in you enough and we believe in the future enough that we're willing to double down with you and make something that is way beyond what would be applicable in most cases, and work with you to make sure that this brand gets out there. So really, really exciting. And those are the kind of commitments you want to see from your partners. So one of the most important parts of being an entrepreneur is being healthy enough, physically, emotionally, spiritually, that you can actually push through every shitty thing that's going to come your way. And believe me, if you're going to be a successful entrepreneur, it's not going to be a smooth ride. It's going to be an incredible ride. You're going to have more personal growth, more spiritual growth, more fortitude than you'll ever have doing anything else, I believe. And again, this is not my first rodeo. So it's going to be really important. But to do that, you're going to need to be healthy. And what happens typically is, especially if we are young entrepreneurs, like it's our first rodeo, and we're in our mid-20s or early 20s, we're in college, maybe we graduated from Stanford or maybe, one of these great schools, and we're starting our first venture, we can throw brute force at it, right? We can throw hours at it. We don't have to sleep. We know what it's like to pull an all-nighter to be able to make it to get our, SATs in the 1600 range or whatever. The challenge is that is unsustainable. And because it's unsustainable, you've got to find whether they're hacks or whether they're purposeful, driven disciplines, you've got to employ in your life. Otherwise, you won't make it. And the finish line is always moving forward. It's never where you think it is going to be. You think it's going to be a startup, and 18 months later, you're going to get a 10 or 11 figure check from a VC or from an acquiring company. That rarely ever happens. You're in the 0.00001% of people where that could happen. And I've even built companies specifically for liquidity event, for a purchase or for an acquisition, and missed it by 2x or 3x the time. And one of them I even had to file bankruptcy on because I just couldn't get to that liquidity event and I hadn't built it to be sustainable. So really important. So your health and wellness are going to be critical to that. And with that, that means I would, along with building your company, specifically build in time and space for exercise or training. Training is exercise with purpose. There's a difference between getting exercise, taking a walk around the block, right? Taking a run, getting on your bicycle, and training where you're saying, I am going to get my resting heart rate down to 46. I'm going to burn 4,000 calories today. I'm going to build this much muscle mass. Those are training edicts. You want to be able to build those in. But for those of you that don't want to go that hardcore, make sure that you exercise. Make sure that you sleep. Sleep is so critical. If you don't have sleep, your body and brain build up toxins. Those toxins become warriors against your efforts. You're suddenly not just fighting the purchasing agent that is hounding you, or the budgetary request, or the employee that's going rogue. You're suddenly fighting your own body and mind that are fighting you every moment of the day. You're going to have sleepless nights because the stress of building a startup is incredible. So know that you're going to have some of those and build those into your whole business plan so that you make sure that you take the time, you take the effort to break yourself down to go, okay, I'm going to learn how to do breathing exercises. I'm going to learn how to do meditation. I'm going to learn how to take the right supplements and the right solutions to get me to sleep. I'm going to know that when I exercise at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it makes me stay up too late, or at 8 a.m. and I get tired at 4. You want to be able to build those things in. In my life, I build a very specific routine for my exercise multiple times a day for me, for my detoxification at least once a day, for my sleep. I'm very critical on what nootropics I take at night. I take a thing called Mental Reboot PM, which basically takes advantage of the fact that my mind every night, and yours does too, as soon as you fall asleep, your brain shrinks slightly and it increases a space around each of the capillaries to allow cerebral spinal fluid to flow around those capillaries and drag out the beta amyloid proteins and the tau proteins and a lot of other detritus that comes from a mitochondria burning energy. And he wants to get it out of your bloodstream. He wants to get it into your spinal column, through your spinal column, and out your body. If you don't sleep well, that doesn't happen. And those proteins build up, and they make it so that the synaptic gap has to have more voltage across it, more potential across it, to get those chemical messengers like acetylcholine that does your memory, right? And your recall and your thinking. Those things suddenly become faded and you suddenly can't think as clearly, as cleanly. Your mood changes. You become less amicable, less able to handle the BS that's going to come your way. And all of those factors can be mitigated by just sleeping well, exercising a bit, balancing your hormones that way. And then also doing things, there's a thing called switching costs. Every time you switch tasks, there is a cost to that. So if you're jumping from email to Instagram to Facebook to TikTok to working with an employee to building a product to do your design software to managing a subcontractor, each one of those takes a period of time between them. There was a recent interview with Elon Musk, and he was talking to Isaac, the gentleman that did Steve Jobs' biography. It's fantastic. You were talking about how Elon Musk handles such intensive cognitive tasks while running multiple businesses. He's running basically 5 or 6 businesses, of which he's the functional CEO of 3 of them. And so to do that, what he does is he works super intensely. He's got about a 2-hour cycle time, 2 to 4 hour cycle time, where he's completely on one task, one big problem that he's solving. And what he does is he goes off and he plays a video game or goes talks to a friend or just kind of rambles or whiteboards or something that's not associated with that task. And that kind of is a reboot to his brain. And then he does the next task. And he might be 20 minutes to an hour in that gap. And so that's how you manage your switching costs. People that know the Pomodoro technique, where you take 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off, or Tony Schwartz, where he does the energy project, where he's into 45 and 90-minute cycles and then take a break for 10 to 15 minutes. Any one of those are important systems to utilize within your day to be able to optimize your output. Because you think it's a marathon, it's not. It's a whole series of sprints. So you're not running a marathon in 4, 6, or 8 or 10 hours. You're running a bunch of sprints in 60 seconds, right? So take each of your projects, your critical projects, break them down into those pieces. Optimize your brain for those. I'd use things like, I've got a product called GABAlicious right here. So GABAlicious increases the GABA receptors in your brain, the GABA activity in your brain, so that what you're doing is you're getting a very calm focus. And so I'll do something like that, or I'll do a thing called Nectar X, which basically raises my metabolic rate and raises my cognitive performance levels, brings my dopamine into focus so that I can just be heads down for 2 or 3 or 4 hours, just focused on that thing I'm trying to accomplish, the thing that's going to move my company forward. So we've built over the last, well, I guess going on 15, 16 years now, we built these solutions that are customized, or actually customized and personalized to you, that help you to go from being kind of like cognitively low performing, we call it sick, to superhuman, where you can actually operate at a very high level, often higher than your peak levels of performance that you've had, like when you're in flow state, as Stephen Kotler might say. We provided these tools that allow you to get there, and that's what Newtopia does. We provide these super tools, these things you can put in your Batman belt, and you can use them as needed to be able to get to the performance levels you need to do the thing that you need to do. And every one of them is built specifically for certain things. Like we have a mood booster called Upbeat that just makes you feel better, makes you feel happier. It increases serotonin levels so your mood is balanced. You're not having these big cyclic mood things. That manic thing that happens is somebody tells you a really shitty thing and then somebody tells you something awesome, a breakthrough, and you just kind of ride those waves. You can kind of smooth that waveform out at a pretty high level. Or we've got a thing called Dopa Drops. Dopa Drops are really cool. They're these really cool capsules. I don't know if you can see those, but they're really interesting capsules. I think I've got some coming to you pretty quick here, Martin. And that increases your dopamine level. Yay! Raise the roof. And so increasing your dopamine levels gives you 2 things. It gives you the desire to accomplish stuff, and it gives you the reward when you accomplish those things. So those 2 are really important. You need the desire, right? The motivation, or you're not going to do it. Something else is getting in the way, or TikTok is going to take over your life. And you also need the reward so that when you do that thing, you go, aha, that was worth it. The discipline it took, the drive it took to get through that reward was worth it because I feel better about it. I can check it off on my to-do list as now it's to done. And those are really, really important factors. And we've got other products. Again, we have a thing called Nectar X, which is essentially a liquid nootropic that increases acetylcholine levels, a little bit of dopamine, a little bit of serotonin, a little bit of noradrenaline or norepinephrine, so that you have this motivation, drive, focus, and you can get through things. But it also makes you a little bit happier. And that being happy, it's really important when you're engaging in your work that it's joyful, that you feel good about it, that you're glad that you're engaged in it. Because otherwise, it's work. And you want work to be play with a reward, right? So that's kind of the big thing. And we have a thing called Power Solution. Power Solution is incredibly powerful in that it was developed originally for athletes to take before they started their exercise to keep them focused and on that exercise so they could get out what we call one more rep. You want one more rep if you're lifting weights. You want one more sprint if you're doing, high intensity interval exercises, that kind of training. And so it gets you there. We also found that gamers love it. People that need to be in front of the machine and they need to keep their peripheral eye movement working and those kinds of things. It's incredible for that. And then, of course, as I mentioned before, we have this really, really powerful thing called mental reboot. And we have an AM, a morning unit, and a PM or a PM unit. And you take the evening one, and it basically cleans your brain out at night so that when you wake up in the morning, you wake up really crisp. You also sleep really soundly. My sleep, my delta sleep, which is my deep, deep sleep, increases from a regular, I'm about a 25 to 30 minute guy. I go to an hour and 15 to an hour 30. So I get a 2x to 3x improvement in that. And my REM sleep, my dream sleep, increases from anywhere from 45 minutes normally to an hour and a half to 2 hours and 15 minutes. So again, it doubles plus. And so I do a lot of problem solving because I'm active in my dreams. I actually have played for years with having a dream state that I can actually articulate to a certain extent. So it's really powerful. So that's kind of that's not a pitch fest, but I do want to share that if you're going to be a super performer in your business and you want to do it without burning out, you're going to need to build some balance pieces in your life. And it can't hurt. And it certainly helps if you know how you operate best. Do you operate best early in the morning? Are you one of those wake up at 4 a.m. and work till noon and then, you're done for the day? Or are you wake up at 9 p.m. or 9 a.m. and slowly get out of bed and slowly start your coffee and slowly listen to a Huberman podcast. And then you get out and you do your stuff. Whatever it is, build your success rhythm around the way that you like to operate and then optimize the shit out of it. Take the things that are going to give you the performance increase that is most important at that time. Know how long you need that to last. It takes a while to figure this out, to build that success rhythm. But once you do, you become what I call indomitable. It's not just superhuman. You're not just operating at a higher level. You're becoming indomitable, where the bullshit that tries to enter your life, you can look at it and laugh and go, haha, if that bullshit's entering my life in this industry, that means that it just entered my competitor's life in this industry, and they're going to go down because they're not bulletproof like I am. So really powerful things that you can do by optimizing your biochemistry, neurochemistry, and basically creating a success rhythm for yourself. Here's the problem, and I'm going to provide some solutions. The problem that we entrepreneurs have is we use brute force to go from startup to liquidity event, right? Startup to sell. And the problem with that is that we use ourselves up. Brian Johnson, probably the most famous right now, bio guy that's, he spends $2 million a year to try to see how his body reacts to certain conditions. And he sold his company for $800 million, did a pretty good job on that one. That was Braintree and Venmo. So most of us don't have that extra $2 million a year to throw into our bodies. But what we can do is we can emulate some of his best practices. And one of his most critical best practices is never compromise sleep. Most of us, especially as entrepreneurs, we go, you know what? I can work a little bit longer. I can work a little bit harder. And I think that's a really, really valuable place to have. Park that in your head and know that you can do that. Know that you have that extra bandwidth because you'll need it. But with that, don't compromise your sleep. So here's an example of what we've created in order to help make that happen, because we want to improve not just the duration of your sleep to a good, whatever it is, 6 to 8 hours, but also the quality of sleep you have within that time. If your sleep is restless, or if it's only happens because you had a bong hit, or because you passed out on the couch playing World of Warcraft, that's probably not quality sleep. I guarantee it. When you smoke marijuana, when you smoke weed, when you toke, when you have a bong hit, the quality of your REM sleep goes away. It goes way down. When you drink, your delta sleep goes way down and your heart rate goes up. So resting heart rate becomes, and again, quality of sleep suffers. Now, I'm not immune to those things, but I am telling you that it's really powerful when you can accomplish quality sleep without those. The way that I do it is I start with a thing called Sleep Breakthrough. So Sleep Breakthrough is this wonderful powdered drink mix, and I mix it. I mix a scoop in or two in about 2 ounces of water. Mix it up. It goes into a fairly heavy little drink mix. Tastes great, by the way. Our flavorist Chastity Myers is an incredible flavorist, and that's all she does in our life is she flavors things and makes them awesome. So drink that down, and what that does is it improves your parasympathetic physiology. So you have your sympathetic physiology, right, fight or flight, and your parasympathetic, which is like digest it, right, and relax and sleep. So that's one. So that's going to bring that down. It's got a lot of glycine in it, which is really important. So it's going to bring your parasympathetic to the level so that you're actually relaxing. Your brain starts to slow down, so you don't have all those thoughts fighting in your brain that happen to many of us entrepreneurs and business owners. And so that's how I started. And then what I do is to guarantee that I'm going to get quality sleep that night, and I'm going to be able to work with my dreams. Is we have this thing called Dream Optimizer. And Dream Optimizer is incredibly powerful. It's it's microdose melatonin. That's not actually the most active ingredient in it. But you do it. It is a gel that sits under your tongue, and it absorbs under your tongue in the microcapillaries there, and then it goes into your bloodstream, and it helps your body to get into a state of dreaminess. And you'll notice as you I take four hits of it under my tongue. You'll notice you'll get into the state of dream about 20 minutes into it, and that'll last all night. It's really, really effective. What I'll often do when I'm doing that is I'll set an intention for my dream. I'll say, here's a problem I'm trying to solve. I'll do it in a you're very aware of these things, Martin, how if you set the intention correctly and you remove the negative aspects of it so that it's not kind of something that raises your heart rate and gets your anxiety going and your adrenaline going. If you do it and you go, okay, here's something that I'd love to fix. I know that there's a solution out there, and allow your dreams to help you solve that. It's a really, really powerful place to be. And again, as an entrepreneur, we need less of an adrenaline rush and more of just a natural, physiological, ATP-based, mitochondrial-based solution to bringing our energy levels up. And the best way to do that is to get your sleep. So I take these sleep products. I take Mental Reboot PM, which is going to help detox my brain at night. So not only am I going to get quality sleep with no hangover like you might get with high dose melatonin or a sleeping pill or any of those kind of drugs, or weed or alcohol. You're gonna go to bed well. You're gonna sleep fairly quickly. You're gonna dream solidly. You're gonna get good delta sleep, that deep sleep that your body needs for rejuvenation, both your muscles and your brain need rejuvenation. And then you're gonna wake up really crisp. You're gonna wake up ready to go. Now, here's something I would suggest. This is a little bit of what you call a Huberman hack. As Dr. Huberman would say, don't wake up and take any kind of caffeinated beverage or caffeine right away. Don't take a stimulant. In fact, if you don't take a stimulant, what's going to happen after about a week and a half is the adenosine, which is a component of our brain chemistry. The adenosine is going to kind of chill out. It's not going to become nearly as much as it normally would be. And instead of plugging the adenosine receptor with caffeine, that adenosine level is going to reduce. So your wakefulness is going to be much higher. And your wakefulness, right? Go and get some early morning sun if possible, and go about your day. And then 90 minutes later, if you feel like it, then you can have a cup of coffee or something. Or what I do is I do either Nectar X, which is my all-day sipper that I take. I sip about an ounce of it. What is that? 30 ml. Take about 30 ml every half hour, 45 minutes, and that keeps my system going really, really well. That's a great little wake up, and I do it. I'll do a Pomodoro technique where I'll work for 25 minutes. I'll take a 5-minute break, work another 25 minutes, 5-minute break. And that keeps my ADHD to a minimum. So I can stay focused, right, as we have over here. And it'll move me forward really elegantly. And then one of the other things that I do is I want my physiology to be as fault tolerant as possible. Fault tolerant meaning when I was younger in the computer industry, we would have these backup power supplies. They were called fault tolerant power supplies. They had a battery in them, and they had an AC DC converter. And what happened is the millisecond that your computer went down, or the electrical grid went down, your computer was booted back up. It would do it. In fact, it wouldn't even shut down. It would just be booted up automatically, nanoseconds. And that was a fault tolerant power supply. I like creating a fault tolerant physiology. I like making it so that when stress or when events hit you that could otherwise be devastating, that would just pull you down for the day, within milliseconds, you're rebooted and you're feeling great. And one of the ways to do that is a thing called Collagenous. We now have 2 flavors of Collagenous. We have a Chocolicious, which is deliciously chocolatey, and we have another one called Salted Caramel that's just coming out now. And what that does is it's a deep, deep mushroom blend. In fact, 1 dose of this, 18 grams of this, is the equivalent of drinking 1.2 pounds of pure mushroom extract. And that's chaga and cordyceps and lion's mane and red reishi. And what it does is it basically helps make your physiology and neurology bulletproof. It makes it so that you have that fault tolerance because your body can handle, it's a high adaptogen formula with a byproduct called BDNF, or brain-derived neurotrophic factor, that increases the number of neurons in your brain so you have more neurological horsepower to work with. So that when you're thinking, especially if you're thinking and you're going, I can do this, or thinking positive thoughts, like I like to wake up with a mantra of what are the things that I'm grateful for. Gratefulness mantra, very, very valuable thing you can do in the morning. This builds those neural pathways to that positivity that helps you to get through the negative stresses or potentially negative stresses in the day. And again, that reframing of your mindset, instead of thinking that's shit or that sucks, think, I wonder what cool thing is going to come out of this. Like, that's a mindset shift, right? That you go, instead of saying, we're screwed, this sucks, nothing's going to work, think, wow, that's interesting. It's interesting. It's not good, bad, or otherwise. That's interesting. I wonder what cool thing is going to happen from this. And by having that shift in mindset, you can make it through all kinds of what otherwise would be decimating and devastating turmoil to your company and to yourself. So anyhow, these are tools that I use. These are really valuable. And this process has helped me to get a lot further. My company has been stuck multiple times in the process of growing. And those processes have been really scary sticking points. But to unstick, I've had to get a new mindset and I've had to develop new processes. Some of those are tools like EOS. We use a thing called EOS in our company, Entrepreneurial Operating System, which helped us grow from small to nearing 50 million in revenue. And without those tools, I don't know that we would have made it. But by being open, by having a positive mental attitude, by looking at things through a positive lens or a lens of can-do, and of utilizing mentors, listening to great podcasts, having great relationships with people and people I can talk to, and even just the openness of finding somebody at the coffee shop who happens to have some gray hair and maybe a little experience, I've been able to go a lot further than maybe I would have gone otherwise. But those are some tools and processes that I use to get through some otherwise potentially crappy experiences in life. Listen, for all of you who want to take advantage of this, we have a special code. It's Piscoric 10. You'll put that in by going to Newtopia.com. That's Nootopia.com/Martin Piskoric. And then go Piskoric10 to get your 10% discount on everything we have available to you at Newtopia.com.
21st Century Entrepreneurship with Martin Piskoric.
Imagine a space where triumphs, trials, and tales of entrepreneurship come alive. Welcome to the 21st Century Entrepreneurship Podcast, a gold awarded journey hosted by Martin Piskoric, connecting with listeners in 95 countries and ranking in the top 0.5% of all podcasts. Join our exclusive community, elevate your perspective, and embark on the path to success.